Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm Jacob. We started this series with God loving it when our faith is active. This week, we're taking it a step further. Our big idea is when our faith is active, we can see God at work.
Absolutely. You know, I have friends who have gone overseas on missions to spread the word of God, and they've come back with the most amazing stories that just have gone to show me that God is still active in this world of ours.
And that is totally true. Oftentimes when we read the Bible, we think it's big things happening to far off places and people a long time ago, but that's not all it is. God is still working and active today.
Yeah.
Watch today's God story and hear about what happened to Daniel and his friends.
How does NASA organize a party? They plan it. Hi everybody, I'm Jared. You remember last time we were talking about Daniel and his friends who had been taken from Jerusalem to serve King Nebuchadnezzar in the court of Babylon. God did some amazing things through them. He gave them abilities to interpret dreams with all sorts of knowledge and wisdom, and they blew the king's mind. Well, we're gonna pick up the story today. Today's big idea is when our faith is active, we can see God at work. Let's see how this works out with Daniel's friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So now we're in Daniel chapter 3, and King Nebuchadnezzar had been busy. He'd built a huge statue to honor himself. It was 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide, and he expected all the judges, all the rulers to bow down to this statue anytime they heard this music playing. The harps, the flutes, the pipes, when they heard the music, they were all to bow down. The king was really strict on everyone bowing down to the statue. He said whoever wouldn't bow down was going to be thrown into a hot, fiery furnace. This was going to be a huge problem for Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Remember, their names got changed in Babylon to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Let's see what they said to the king. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up." These men had amazing faith in God, but this made the king even angrier. So he gave an order to heat the furnace up even 7 times hotter than it was before. He instructed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be bound up and to be taken up to the furnace. The furnace was so hot that the soldiers that took them up there got scorched and were killed. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into the furnace. Let's see what happens next. But suddenly, Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" "Yes, your majesty, we certainly did," they replied. "Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a god." Then Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. This is incredible. They came out of the fire, and not a hair, not a piece of clothing, they weren't singed at all. They didn't even smell like smoke. It was an incredible miracle. These guys had amazing faith in God, and everyone else got to see it too. The king was so amazed, he gave an order that everyone was to worship the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And if they didn't worship that God, they would be torn limb from limb. There is no other God that can rescue like this. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were honored and given even more important jobs. This is an amazing story with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And even though they saw God work in some spectacular ways, we don't always see God work that way. Sometimes he works in the small and subtle little ways. But when our faith is active, we can see and know that God is at work in our lives. I'm Jared. We'll see you next time.
You know what caught my attention? This story really wasn't about Daniel. It was about his friends. And I think that just goes to show that Daniel didn't have some superpower to trust in God, but that God can work through anyone who believes in him.
You know, I think you're right. I never really thought about it that way, but it shows that God can do incredible stuff through regular guys like you and me.
We're gonna watch Audrie's life story now, about how she trusted in God and things didn't quite go as expected. Watch this.
I'm Canadian. I love my country and I love my family, but I've always just wanted to travel and learn more about other cultures. So I created a diary. In the diary, I wrote all the things I wanted to do when I went to France. I really wanted to become a French teacher. So the only way to become a French teacher is to learn more French. So I decided that how I was gonna do this is by doing an exchange program. I'd have somebody from France come visit my family, and then I'd go to France to visit hers. I prayed to God that I would have an exchange student that would become a sister to me. When my exchange student, Clelia, came to Canada, she did everything with us. Went to church, went to school. We went to a bunch of amusement parks, took her to specialty restaurants you can only find here in Canada, and we just took her all around different cities. Then Clelia returned back to France, to her family. Soon enough, it was my turn to go visit her. I was super excited. When I arrived in France, things were a little bit different than I had imagined. The culture was really different, and I didn't know a lot of French at that point, and they didn't know a lot of English. Soon after I arrived, I started going to art classes. For the first couple of times, I went with my exchange mom. We took the tram together, but then she told me that I'd start taking the tram by myself. I was really nervous. All I had to go off of was just a map. So I prayed to God to make sure that everything would be all right, because I was really, really nervous. In France, they use France French. But in Canada, my whole life, I've been learning Quebec French. So when I got there, we had quite a few misunderstandings. I didn't really know all of the terms that they use there. So one time, my exchange mom asked me to make the salad, but I thought she said, eat the salad, because it is very similar in French. So there I was, eating the salad, when really I should have been just mixing the salad. Clelia had a lot of extracurricular activities that I wasn't able to go to. So that meant I had a lot of time that I had to figure out something to do by myself. In France, there's not a lot of people who are Christians, so I wasn't able to go to a church often. So I really missed my friends and my family and my church and just everything I knew back in Canada. A lot of times I felt sad or lonely and just felt like I didn't have a lot of people to talk to. I prayed to God that I would have a better day tomorrow. I communicated with my family and friends quite a bit while I was there, especially during the tough times. But then, soon later, I realized that for me to really have a great experience in France, I had to put away my phone and I had to put away all my communication with home and really invest in my time in France. For Christmas, my grandma bought me a French Bible. I was able to take the French Bible with me to France. This helped me through a lot of tough times because I was able to read the Bible daily. Once I limited my communication with home, I was able to really enjoy myself in France. I had a lot of fun getting to know people better and really being in the community. We visited quaint little shops around the city, went to farms, ate at amazing restaurants, and went to tourist attractions like the Eiffel Tower. It was an amazing experience and everything that I asked for.
Wow, that was an incredible story. And I loved how brave Audrey was to go to a new country with a new culture all on her own.
Yeah.
I would love to visit a country like that one day.
Absolutely. I found the turning point in Audrey's story really interesting. When she put away her phone and started trusting in God, everything changed, and she really enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, you're right. And it sort of brings us back to our big idea. When our faith is active, we can see God at work. Let's break into our small groups now and see what this looks like in our lives.